Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is the biggest crossover in video game history. There are a ton of series represented here, from all different eras of gaming. So today, I'm going to go through every single character's origin game and rate it from 1 to 10. How we'll handle this is if the character has never been playable, they simply won't be ranked, or I will take the game that they're first seen in. If two characters share the same origin game, I will either switch it up a bit, or I'll just not rank the second one. Finally, one more thing I need to say is that I'm rating all these games on the same scale. For example, Persona 5 is being rated 1 to 10 the same as Kirby's Dream Land is. But the one difference is I'm rating these games based on what they're trying to be. Kirby's Dream Land isn't a good turn-based RPG, but Persona 5 is. Meanwhile, Kirby's Dream Land is a good platformer, but Persona 5 isn't. So I'm rating on what the game is trying to be rather than actually against the other games, if that makes sense. So with all that out of the way, let's get started. Mario's first game is Super Mario Bros., as if I even had to say that. Everyone has heard or seen this game. It's impossible, it's the most recognizable game of all time. There really isn't much to say that hasn't already been said, but one thing I will say is all of you may have seen this game or played it a bit, but how many of you have actually 100%ed this game? So, let's go play through the whole game! Mario goes run, then he goes jump, Mario goes run, then he goes jump, Mario goes run, then he goes jump, Mario goes run, then he goes... This game is so good, but so old. The movement is fun, the level design is revolutionary for the time, but my biggest issue is just how difficult the game is. And I mean difficult, not challenging. The game isn't necessarily hard, or at least it doesn't have to be. What makes it hard is the life system and the lack of saving. If this game had infinite lives, it would be half an hour long, but it takes days instead. As I explored in Are Video Games Getting Worse, old games were like arcade games but at home. This meant that they were meant to take a long time and were easy to learn but hard to master. Does Super Mario Bros. Succeed at this? Sort of. It's a simple concept that will take a long time to beat. Did I enjoy this? Yeah, kinda. It is frustrating when you die and have to restart, and even with the warp zones, it can be kind of frustrating to replay so much of the game. But there's a reason it's a classic. It's super fun and created the most recognizable video game character of all time. And it created an entire genre of video games and shot the market back up. This game is something I would recommend to everyone. It's a classic game that earns its title with great movement and simple yet enjoyable mechanics. Super Mario Bros. Is of course fantastic. It's just a little outdated. 7.5 out of 10. I love the Donkey Kong series. The first game I played was Donkey Kong Country Returns, and just recently I played the original Donkey Kong Country on an original SNES, and ooh boy is this a good game. My biggest issue with old games is saving, as it can cause you to replay large amounts of a game, or sometimes even the whole game just to get back to where you were. Donkey Kong Country doesn't have that problem. The saving mechanic keeps you on your toes but isn't annoying. The level design is fantastic and the gameplay is simple yet enjoyable. There are a ton of secret rooms to look up, offering up different rewards that will help you on your journey through DK Island. The worlds are all totally unique and have amazing themes. The graphics haven't aged all too badly and were revolutionary for the time. Donkey Kong may be in the same genre as Mario, but the games are totally different in terms of level design and game mechanics. In this one, Diddy Kong will follow you, and when Donkey Kong gets hit, you play as Diddy instead, and you can find Donkey Kong in a barrel. The game is constantly showing you new ideas, but it never feels overwhelming. My one issue is that some levels are much harder than others. Like, I'll get levels that will take me dozens of tries, and then I'll play through the next one in one try. But the game isn't necessarily particularly worse by this. As I said, it has a good saving system, so it never feels frustrating. Overall, Donkey Kong Country is a great and fun time, 8.5 out of 10. Since this is Breath of the Wild Link, we're going to be looking at Breath of the Wild rather than the actual first Zelda game. Upon release, Breath of the Wild was praised to no end, and it really is great, but Recently playing it, I've realized an issue with it. When you're a pioneer, not everything you do will be perfect, and your competitors could copy your great idea and make something potentially better. While I don't think a game like Genshin Impact surpasses Breath of the Wild, the game certainly has weaknesses. Breath of the Wild is so intriguing because you start with practically nothing in a paraglider and are just told to go. You could go straight to Ganon with these materials, but the game does tell you that you can go to the 4 corners of the map, and you can find these important dungeons that will make your quest easier. Breath of the Wild constantly keeps you seeing new things, but it doesn't dawdle. Due to the way the shrines work, you can warp to most places on the map if you've already been there. What I admire so much is the way that the game is set up. Like I said before, the divine beasts are in the 4 corners of the map, meaning that no matter what way you go, it's the right way. I remember thinking that the starting area was gigantic at the beginning, but look at that compared to the rest of the map. The issue with Breath of the Wild's 4 corners is that it can feel too low or high leveled compared to where you are in the game. The game isn't really hard, so most of the time in my playthrough I felt over-leveled. I went to Zora's Domain first, however, and I ended up not even fighting the Lionel as it was too hard and I didn't have enough stuff. I didn't get Breath of the Wild when it first came out, as I had never played a Zelda game before and I had other games I wanted. But since buying it about a year ago, I haven't stopped discovering new side quest mechanics, creatures, and weapons. Breath of the Wild is nothing short of phenomenal and is essential to any Switch owner. It's frankly amazing just how big and how many ideas were put into this one game, and I will definitely make a longer review soon. 9 out of 10. I really like the Metroid series, and I am excited for Metroid Dread, but the original Metroid is just not good. It feels a lot like the original Castlevania in the sense that there's no reason to go back to it, unless you're curious what the first Metroid was. The game is super basic, and like a lot of other NES games, it's fun, but it's just so old. I have a lot of respect for the NES era of games, but most games, although revolutionary for the time, haven't aged too well. I think with the SNES having many sequels to NES games, it makes most of them feel obsolete, and Metroid is certainly one of those. Super Metroid is one of the best games on the SNES, and so the original Metroid has no real reason to play. It's confusing, sprawling, frustrating, and difficult. With all that said, however, the game is still extremely interesting and is an okay NES game. Not the greatest or an essential for the system, but still pretty good. I don't have much to say about this game besides it's basic and there are better alternatives. It did introduce the Metroid universe to video games, however, so I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Yoshi has a pretty subjective first game. Some would say it's Yoshi on NES or Yoshi's Cookie, but I think I'm gonna go with the original Yoshi's Island. Although I've heard of this game previously, I haven't actually played it all that much. The first thing I noticed when loading in is the atmosphere of the game. It's very cute and just feels nice. The story is that baby Mario fell onto Yoshi Island and is trying to be caught by Kamek, but the Yoshis will guide him as far as they can. The gameplay isn't really like Super Mario World, despite it being called Super Mario World 2. Instead of stepping on enemies, you most of the time will swallow them up and then turn them into eggs, and then you can throw those eggs at other enemies or items. The levels have a ton of little collectibles, whether it be red coins, flowers, stars, or 1-ups. The collectibles give you 2 options: go through the level as fast as possible, or look for all the little collectibles. The game has fun enemies and bosses, great level design and ideas, and once again, great atmosphere. So why don't I like this game? Maybe it's just because I wasn't in the mood to play a game like this, but I found that I had to force myself to play this game a lot more than the others. The game is still fantastic, but I just felt bored a lot, I guess. Overall, Yoshi had a great first game, 7 out of 10. Kirby's Dream Land is so incredibly fun and I have no idea why. Playing through this game just feels so nice. Such a fun little game and one of my favorites for the original Game Boy. It doesn't really have a lot of problems I find with other games from this era. First, the saving system is really good, saving after each level you complete. Second, the gameplay of Kirby is so good yet so simple that the other games don't just feel like this one but better. Rather, they feel like if the games kept changing theming and ideas. The game is developed by Masahiro Sakurai, known most for his work on Smash. However, all the games he's developed have had the same fundamental idea, bringing together casual and hardcore video game players together to enjoy one experience. Kirby's Dream Land is exactly that, complexity delivered within simplicity, and although this game is quite simple, it isn't boring. I had that constant rush while playing this, like every move could be my last, but it didn't frustrate me because I knew I would only have to replay each level from the beginning. The gameplay may surprise people who are used to the newer Kirby games, as there are no copy abilities in this game. Kirby can only attack by inhaling enemies and then spitting them back out. Besides that difference, it's the type of simple Kirby gameplay that is enjoyed by all. Overall, Kirby's Dream Land is a great and simple game that started out one of my favorite platforming series. 8 out of 10. I'm sorry. I've never been that big of a fan of Star Fox, but I can absolutely see the appeal of the games. They're all fun in their own way, but I would never spend money on one if I didn't have to. The original Star Fox for SNES isn't bad, but I still have a few problems with it. First of all, and probably most noticeably, the graphics, which were once cutting edge and revolutionary, just aren't anymore. Perspective is sometimes hard to understand, and the way your R-Wing moves sometimes is just odd. I tried the different control methods and really never got properly used to any of them. As much as I may hate how many newer games have really complicated and long tutorials, this game just leaves too much up in the air. If I have to look up what something does more than 3 times, there's a problem. However, it is still a Star Fox game and one of the best SNES games, and one that I think any owner should have. It has a fun idea and executes it as well as it could. The characters are interesting and the whole game honestly doesn't look that bad. It's very good at being atmospheric, which is something I've noticed a lot with these older games. It's like, wow, I'm really an animal in a spaceship. And not every game makes you feel like that. That's right, screw off Breath of the Wild. Yeah right, 10 out of 10. Look, I'm a mammal in a ship. My biggest gripe with this game is just how much fun its follow-ups are, so I would rather play those. Overall, Star Fox is fun and it doesn't have too many problems. 7 out of 10. Although the Pokemon technically aren't playable, I will be including the Pokemon's origin region on this list, just to keep things more interesting. Another issue is that the Pokemon games release 2 or more alongside each other with slightly different gameplay and stories, so how will I decide which one to play? Whatever I feel like. So first, Pokemon Red. Pokemon Red is a classic that saved Nintendo's system and breathed new light into the Game Boy. It's the most profitable media franchise of all time, and Pikachu is only second to the Mario Bros in terms of pop culture video game icons. Now here's the part where I say that despite this big media franchise, the first game is actually pretty weak and the series got way better as it went on. Yeah, kinda. But the first game is still really good. It has 151 Pokemon, which is a lot to catch, and it can be fun to complete the Pokédex. The story is actually really solid when you're trying to become the greatest Pokemon trainer of all time, but you get interrupted by Team Rocket and end up thwarting their plan. The characters are pretty good for such an old game. The graphics are great for a Game Boy game, and the battles are surprisingly not that boring. If I have one issue with this game, it's that it's been remade so many times I don't see why you would go back to play this one. Just play Fire Red instead, in my opinion. Still a great game. 8 out of 10. While technically Luigi's first game is Super Mario Bros., his first solo adventure is Luigi's Mansion, so that's what I'll be rating. Luigi's Mansion is basically a tech demo for the GameCube to show just how strong it was. Instead of beginning with a Mario game like every system before it, it began with a spin-off about everyone's favorite luck-based Smash character. No, not him. No, not him. No, not- I'm talking about Luigi. Luigi's Mansion is a very short and simple game. You could beat it in a few hours, and the gameplay is nothing revolutionary. The theming, however, is what's so good. The mansion isn't legitimately scary, but it does have quite the unsettling vibe to it. Along with all that, the ghosts in this game are either boos or look like real dead Mario characters. Luigi's Mansion also has a ton of little secrets and ways to play that rewards players for searching through the mansion. Whether it be boos, speedy spirits, treasure, plants you can water, golden mice, all that keeps you exploring looking for the next treasure. The controls are also very good and showed off just how versatile the GameCube controller is. Finally, the bosses in this game are all really good. And I'm talking about area bosses and as well as the regular ghosts you capture. They all have some specific way to reveal their heart, allowing you to catch them, but you're never told explicitly what to do. Overall, Luigi's Mansion is a fun, albeit short, experience. 7.5 out of 10. Earthbound is such a good game that nowadays there are so many games similar to it that Earthbound games has become its own genre of RPGs. I've played games like Omori, but until now I hadn't really played Earthbound, and I must say, this game certainly is good and lives up to its reputation. I don't like a lot of older RPGs, but this seems to be an exception. I love the style of this game. Most older RPGs take place in some fantasy world full of magic, meanwhile Earthbound takes place in suburban America. In most RPGs you fight giant monsters, meanwhile in Earthbound you fight bullies and slugs. The music is also wacky but kinda great in its own way. There were songs I had heard and I didn't even know that they were from a video game, much less Earthbound. The main thing I dislike about older RPGs is the grindy nature of them, and while Earthbound has a little bit of that, it's still fun. The quirky nature of the story also helped to keep me entertained and had me genuinely laughing sometimes. It's just the little things like you calling your dad to save your game, there being an I don't care button, the dog that has the soul of a video game developer, and Pokey's mom killing Buzz. The game has a very distinct personality like no other, and it keeps it fresh. If I have one issue, it's the saving. The way it works is that you can lose one battle and you'll have to replay 15 minutes of a dungeon you were already halfway through. But the battles are fun and feel rewarding, the money system is cool, and the dialogue is great. The graphics are really vibrant and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with this game. Overall, Earthbound is a must-have for any SNES owner. 9 out of 10. F-Zero has become a forgotten franchise over the year, and it mostly stems from it starting as a racing game on the SNES, only to be overtaken by Super Mario Kart. Although, I have to say, I like F-Zero on SNES more than Super Mario Kart. I've been pretty vocal about not liking Super, but F-Zero is great. Part of the reason I dislike Super Mario Kart are the bad controls, the graphics, the items, the CPUs. F-Zero just has more tight controls, better graphics in my opinion, no items keeping the game simpler, and better, more fair CPUs. At its core, F-Zero has simple gameplay. It's just a racing game with 5 laps. Every lap you must be above a certain threshold or you'll be eliminated. There's also this energy bar in the top right that will go down every time you hit a wall. If it goes all the way down, your car explodes, and you can recharge it by going on these strips. The game is meant to be really fast, and I would say it accomplishes that goal. It feels fast-paced, and I even need to slow down sometimes just to take a break and make sure that I don't hit anything. If I have one gripe with this game, it's that it can be pretty hard to properly drift, so I tend to just take turns slowly rather than drift. However, after playing this first game, I can see how good F-Zero is, and it's frankly shocking that we've gone this long without a new game. Overall, F-Zero is a simple racer that accomplishes what it wants to. 7.5 out of 10. Super Mario Bros. 2, baby, game of the year. Sorry, I've always wanted to do that. Super Mario Bros. 2 isn't one that's often talked about. Usually people go from the original to 3 and then to World. I think it's mostly because Super Mario Bros. 2 is a reskin from another game, being Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic. This means that Super Mario Bros. 2 isn't really its own separate game. This explains why it's so different from the other Mario games. Instead of jumping on your enemies, you can stand on top of them and have to pick them up to throw them at others. There are also a bunch of turnips on the floor that you can use to throw at other enemies. This game basically revolves around you picking up things, whether it's bombs on the floor or boss fights. Another fun fact is that this game is where Birdo came from, with her being at the end of every level. That means that Birdo was technically in a Mario game before Yoshi. This game is quite the odd one, and I enjoyed my time with it. I think that the mechanics in this game are fun and interesting, but my two biggest issues are the level design and the life system. Instead of getting 100 coins for an extra life, you have to dig up a potion, throw it on the ground in this weird upside down world, and then pluck turnips to get coins. At the end of the level, you will then roll a slot machine with those coins, and you can get extra lives through there. The issue is how uncommon this is. And not only that, it's so detrimental when you run out. You get 2 continues after losing all your lives, and after that, you go all the way back to the beginning. And there isn't the same cheat code in the original where you can continue from the world you died in. You just go all the way back. Overall, Super Mario Bros. 2 is interesting and creative. 7.5 out of 10. Super Mario Land for the Game Boy certainly does look like it's for the Game Boy. This is Daisy's first game because instead of saving Peach, you save Daisy, the princess of Sarasa Land. Back to the graphics. I mean, look at this brick. Are you really expecting a top quality looking game? Super Mario Land is even more bare bones than the original. The game is so weird and just changes so many things. Just to name some, the Koopa shells are now bombs, the fireball power-up is now a ball, you'll fly in a spaceship at some point, there are a ton of odd enemies, and the whole game just feels very different from a normal Mario game. The controls are pretty poor, but that may just be because it's on the Game Boy. The game looks pretty bad and is super short. There are only 16 levels and none of them are particularly long. So although the game is pretty bad, it just kinda has this charm to it, I guess. It's like, wow, this is a terrible game, but I kind of love it for that. It just feels so different. Overall, there isn't really much to be said about this one. It's pretty weird, but absolutely charming. 7 out of 10. If I'm not mistaken, Bowser's first playable game is Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. I've been a fan of the Mario & Luigi series for a long time, and this is no worse than the other ones. It has a good story, good gameplay, and a good battle system, and seeing Bowser in this way is great. I won't spoil it, but the final boss is also fantastic. I don't really have much to say about Bowser's Inside Story. It's just a great game that doesn't have too many problems in my opinion. A great RPG series by Nintendo. 8.5 out of 10. Ice Climbers isn't like most other games on this list. There was never a sequel or a remake to the original NES game. It just remained an NES game. This means that there isn't a better version of this game like there is with most other NES games. Ice Climbers also really stays true to the arcade games that inspired it. Although it's very mild, there is still kind of a progression in story in games like Super Mario Bros. But Ice Climbers doesn't really have that. It's very arcade feeling in a game that needs practice and can be kind of repetitive. But looking at this game as what it's trying to be, it is quite fun. In this game, you play as this climber guy named Popo who's trying to get to the top of this mountain. You can use your hammer to break blocks and attack enemies. Once you get to the top, there's this little bonus and then you move on to the next level. There are 24 levels, all with different levels of difficulty and new mechanics. The game has good progression and is pretty fun, but my one issue is the way the climbers move. They're very slow on the ground and even worse in midair. You can barely even move in midair, so you have to jump at just the right spot or you won't make it, which can get quite frustrating, especially with so many moving parts in a level. Overall, it is a good yet really simple game with some movement problems. 6.5 out of 10. Sheik and Zelda both have their first playable appearance in Hyrule Warriors, which is technically a side game, but I'm gonna count it here. Hyrule Warriors wasn't a game I liked that much, as I didn't really know what I was getting into. It's a Warriors game, making it more of a 3D beat-em-up compared to the more story-driven dungeon crawler Zelda. It isn't that bad, and was a pretty good time, but I did notice a fair amount of frame rate drops, especially playing with others. It has fun ideas like the character customization and crafting systems, the campaign is pretty good, and it does feel like a good Warriors game. The gameplay can feel somewhat repetitive, however, which can be attributed to the game style, but similar games like Final Fantasy XV and Persona 5 Strikers didn't really feel like that. Despite me generally preferring the normal Zelda games, I did thoroughly enjoy Hyrule Warriors. Overall, Hyrule Warriors is a great game, but it can be held back by the system it's on. 7.5 out of 10. Our final character for today, Dr. Mario, has a great game, but there isn't much I can say about it, because it's a puzzle game. You have these little viruses that are 3 different colors and pills drop from the sky, and you have to stack 4 colors on top of each other to get rid of the viruses. The pills can either be 2 colors or a solid pill worth 2. It's fun enough for a puzzle game, but overall there isn't really much to say. Dr. Mario is fun and it is a good time, and it does have a pretty good progression system. 7.5 out of 10. Wow, would you look at that video length? I don't know if I can really go on for much longer, so this video is going to be split into 4 parts. Yes, I know, I'm sorry, but do you really want to watch me talk about this for an hour and a half? I don't actually know yet if I'm going to be making parts 2, 3, and 4, so if this gets enough support, I probably will. But it is a lot of work to do something like this. It's a lot of playing games and a lot of writing and just a lot of reviewing, and it takes a long time. Obviously, look at the video length, but I did enjoy this project. Oh, and one last thing, don't leave your review of any of these games in the comments. I don't care.